Welcome back. I know it's been a minute since I've done one of these newer comic book reviews, but I figured what better one to come back to than the ongoing stories of the newly bisexual Tim Drake, the most popular Robin all of a sudden as well. Sure, there's no coincidence in those two things, but we do have a new series starring the character, and when I saw some of the interior art from previews, I was not excited because the artist is the same one from the Harley Quinn series, and I stopped reading that series partially. I will say the art was one of the reasons. I didn't like the story either, so it was very easy to put it down. But the art was part of the reason, so knowing that that's the art I was getting in this book, I already wasn't all that excited for it. But I decided to see what the story would actually consist of, and yeah, let's just go ahead and talk about it because I don't really have anything else to say about it for this intro. We're going to talk about Tim Drake Robin number 1. That's right. It's back once again. So let's see how they're planning to further develop the story of Tim Drake and his new boyfriend. God, that's going to be a part in there. You're going to see in a minute why I'm having so much trouble picking up a drive to actually start talking about this story. So you know what? Let me just shut up and get straight into it. Let's begin the story. Yes. So we start here at the Gotham City Marina, which is where Tim is living now, and he's thinking to himself, it says, "It's been 6 weeks since I moved out, to figure out who I am away from my family. Ever since moving here, I've felt strange." And we can see right here on the boat where there's this thing in French. I've never really spoken French, so I'm not going to try to speak it in this recording, but you can see what it says. It originally comes from the 18th century French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau's novel, The New Eloise, and it basically just translates into deny that which is and explain that which is not. It became much more popular when it was used in the ending of Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, which is basically exactly what this story is. There you go. We've reached the end. Aren't you happy we got through it, you guys? We got through it. It only took one panel. We already know what the story is. You can leave. You're dismissed. Class is over. Go ahead and go. Why are you still here? Damn it. I gotta talk about the rest of the story. Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Let's do it. Let's talk about the story. He says it's like somebody's watching him. Part of me wonders if it's Batman. Well, it very well could be. He's very good at that sort of thing. And well, I mean, if he were into you like that, I guess he probably would be. But right now, he's a little bit concerned about other things in his life. So it's not all about you, Tim. There's this bird that we get the little close up on, and then he says he was worried when I left. Not that he'd admit it, but my injury spooked him. No, I'm not making this up. Someone is behind me. Oh my. He starts counting 3, 2, 1, and we get this very like scared look on his face as somebody just sneaks up behind him saying, "Gotcha." And who do you think it was? It was What do they have this boy wearing? I'm, for one thing, I will say I'm a little bit offended. I'm a little bit upset because my boyfriend still wears ripped jeans like this. So I'm going to be yelling at him when he comes home because he's not home right now. I'm going to be yelling at him. He's not going to know why. He's going to be very confused, but I'm going to be yelling at him. And then the coat and the shirt, the hair. What is going on here? What are the shoes too? Like what are these? Are these feet? Because these are some knife feet. I mean, you're cutting somebody with these. Damn. Okay. So he's talking about how he can't believe he was able to sneak up on him And Tim is thinking to himself how there's still danger out there, somewhere, and it's distracting him. But he's saying how he was able to smell him coming a mile away. He counters that by saying that he had to smell good for their first date in a month. And then he says that he can't let anything distract him, but obviously something is right at this moment. They even put the heart right above them. Like that, really, you had to make it that cartoonish? All right, we get this last little shot as it says, "Let the games begin." We have them sitting here. They came to basically a food truck to eat with all of the other poor people, I guess. And it says, "So my new theory is that Batman is some sort of demigod, demogorgon hybrid." And Tim is asking him how that works. He says, "Well, think about it. How has he survived all these years unless he's got some sort of godly parent?" And then he asks about the Demogorgon, but he just says, "Well, wouldn't that be cool?" Okay, I guess it would. The Demogorgon is a prince of demons, right? And he's thinking to himself that it's been almost 6 months and he's still pinching himself. This is all supposed to be very endearing or cute or whatever. It's kind of annoying. It's like this epic love story between a demon prince and a forlorn godly princess. Does that make us boyfriends? Shut up. Is there a timeline for that, or does it just happen? Or should I ask, shut up? Thank God he gets cut off as someone says, "I will do it. Let me hand them out. It was my idea." And then, they get closer as they hear and he's able to identify who it is. They're basically his neighbors or whatever. These two old ladies. They're arguing with each other, and then the sister tells the other one to give him a flyer, and she's saying, "I was getting to that. Would you hold on? You're so pushy." She's saying, "We're holding a cookout to raise money for the marina. You and your boyfriend are invited." And he says, "See, she said boyfriend again. Shut the hell up." So he says, "Thanks, Cam. What's the money for?" She says, "The city hates us." And he asks, "Hate?" So the sister says that she's being dramatic, but she's not wrong. They've been trying to evict everyone so they can turn our marina into some fancy, expensive place none of us could afford to live in. So that's when Bernard calls them capitalist fat cats, because basically what they're describing is just gentrification. Anyway, she's saying, "The boy gets it. Now come, Camille, we have more flyers." She says, "Stop calling me that, it's Cam." And when she's saying Cam's a stupid name, what kind of name is that? "That's not what I named you." He's telling him, "I like your neighbors. They're weird." And he says, "Yeah, but you like weirdos. That's why you're dating me." And he's making this face, which is supposed to be, I guess, suave, because he gave some sort of smooth line. But it just comes across looking more like he knows that he has a dead body stashed in his trunk and you don't. Anyway, Bernard is asking him, "Isn't one named Trout?" He says, "Close. Tuna. He works the boats in the yard." And this is where we kind of get a little bit of backstory on all the other people. Apparently we have Tammy and Lauren who live in the boat next to me. They're the ones with the progressive pride flag. God. Of course they are. But of course they are. And the works of art taking up their deck. When Pi isn't working on the dock, they're hanging out with them. I read through this the first time, and wasn't until just this time that I actually really read that last sentence. Because now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, Pi is the third person, and the they is that they have... There's Louie and Sophie. I think they are single-handedly keeping the cigarette industry alive. And then there's James, my landlord. Pretty sure he didn't even know boats floated until last year. Cute. So Bernard is saying they're good for you. This whole place is good for you. The marina makes you smile. So I think the Demogorgon would probably seduce the God Princess. Anyway, Tim stumbles away and he's thinking, "I like the marina, but that's not what's been making me smile. Being with Bernard, it's different than anything I've ever felt before. Everyone's noticed. Damien held a knife to my throat and demanded to know where the real Tim was. But that's the thing. Bernard brings out the real me." Oh, God. I'm telling y'all, like, I'm on the verge of having a heart attack. I am cringing so hard. Makes me feel like there's so much more to me than I've settled for. Oh, would you settle down, you silly little queer. He's saying that he's learning how to do all of this without Batman, without my family, to have my own place in the world as we get all of these different close-ups on just like different crimes that are basically being committed all around him. I don't know if this is meant to like show us that he's just not aware of these things, or that he is aware and he's keeping tabs on all of them. It's very much not clearly indicated here, but whatever. He's thinking Bruce will blow a gasket when he sees the place. Dick would probably love it, but it'd be too small for him. Jason would like it. Damien wouldn't. Neither would Cass. Stephanie, she'd probably hate it. He's gonna keep doing this thing where he has to keep mentioning everybody by name. I don't know why. He walks up to his houseboat and he's immediately greeted by Darcy from the We Are Robin crew, and he's asking her what she's doing there, as he's also kind of giving us the lowdown, saying that they weren't close during during everything that happened, but when he moved to the boat, he asked a couple of people for help, and although some people showed up, once or twice, she was there every single day. So she's telling him that the place looks like a murder shed and asking where's the dead bodies, but he says no one asks questions when you own the worst boat in the marina, and tells her that it's good to see her too. Then we get this whole little thing that they tend to do with like the Batcave and stuff, where we get the cutaway illustration showing the inner workings of the boat and different close-ups on stuff, so we see all of his files where he's working on a new costume, and then also where he has the Robin cycle, but he says it needs work. She's telling him that she didn't bring a housewarming gift, but he's saying that's fine because he doesn't think there's room for one anyway. And then he asks, what's up? Why are you here? Didn't think you'd take me up on the invite. But she says, wanted to check in on my We Are Robin mentor. How's the nose? And he says, did Batman send you? I told you I'm on, but then they get cut off by a very loud, shrieking scream. So they come outside and we see this close-up of a bloody mouth. And then there's a bunch of people gathered around a crime scene. They run up asking what happened, and he sees it's the two ladies from earlier, and they see that they're both dead. So he's looking at them and he's saying, yeah, that's pretty dead, and he's making this pose for some reason. I don't know what this is. I don't know what she's doing. See, she's sashaying down to the murder scene. What are you doing? Why are you positioned like this? The people around her asking, could it have been the rigging, must have accidentally gotten too close to the sail. But he's saying, this wasn't an accident. There's no way.
It's a moida.
Is she doing the sign language? Because she's talking. Is she deaf? It doesn't look like it because he was talking to her earlier. I really don't know. Maybe it's a thing from We Are Robin. I really didn't read We Are Robin. Not gonna lie about that. If it was a part of that, couldn't tell you. The cops are talking to each other, talking about like, we'll get the body moved, but there's not much to go on. And this is where we get the same Detective Williams from earlier in Tim's new bisexual story. He's the gay mentor. Tim walks up in costume, and Detective Williams is asking him why he called him. He says, you're just going to solve this yourself, Robin. He says, I don't exactly trust your fellow officers on this beat. The marina folk have some shady stories about your friends. Figured I'd call someone who'd get the job done. Someone I know I can work with, and that's where we see then he has her there in her costume. Then Detective Williams says, absolutely not. I'm not your fairy gay father. Oh, the what? He's saying, I don't work for you, and who is this, super sweatshirt? You queens, always with the scathing remarks. She says, just call me Sparrow. And he's like, great, more birds. She says, birds of a feather, Detective Williams. He says, well, out with it. Since we're all in this together, it seems. What do you see? And that's when Robin, who for some reason is doing some sort of flourishing movement with his cape as he walks, and then he's thinking to himself, I am Robin. It is my business to know what other people do not know. Then he says, oh no, I'm quoting Sherlock Holmes now. Yeah, why? We're going to see why, but it's all so very heavy-handed here. Anyway, we start doing this whole thing where he's examining the crime scene. He says that the handprints have long fingers, but they look human. He sees an old straight razor, some sort of gold piece. It looks French, a franc, and it's an old one. Based on the torn ligaments and the crushed windpipe, there's no way a human could have done this. And then he says, what's this? Gray hair? So like I've said before, if you've read The Murders in the Rue Morgue, you already know what the end of this story is. But let's just keep going. Sparrow is asking him what he thinks it is. He says, don't know yet, too early, but this tuft of hair is interesting. So he starts, analyzing it. Detective Williams is asking him, what are you doing? You're tampering with evidence. But he says, look, I called you, remember? And you came because when you looked into it, the city claimed this was an accident. You know that it isn't. I called because I know you care. And Detective Williams is standing there looking admonished like some sort of child who took his dessert too early before he had his supper. The analysis is complete, and it comes out to be orangutan fur. And he's asking how, and then it suddenly hits him as he says, I know what this is. And then we get, like I said, the murders in the Rue Morgue. So he's saying, keep it busy as he's running away. And Sparrow's standing there looking at Detective Williams asking, what just happened? He says, keep what busy? And they turn around because something is there. Yes, it is a glowing projection of an orangutan. And then this is where he goes into some backstory on the murders in the Rue Morgue, saying it's the very first detective story written by Edgar Allan Poe. It's one of the inspirations for Sherlock Holmes, the story that started it all. And I've seen something like this before. Before all the stuff with Mickey and Young Justice. This is where, he's racing to go and figure out what it is that he needs to do next. You're going to see, because they call back to this story from the DC Pride Tim Drake special. And he's saying it was that in that instance, they fought against an elephant that was for Mark Twain's The Stolen White Elephant. It was transparent, but we found a way to stop it. A small white enamel disc. When we broke it, then we could defeat it. If this thing plays by the same rules, and we see where he's doing this whole thing with his cape to turn it into wings, basically, he says, then I'm looking for the white disc. And then he is able to see it because he's at a higher distance. He says, whoever was behind the elephant attack clearly wasn't a one and done sort of villain. So who's controlling this thing? How are they making these manifestations? And why is this person referencing detective stories? Why are your pants pulled so very high up? Why am I just realizing this too? I'm pretty sure that this is something that I could have noticed before, but for some reason, this is the first place that I'm actually taking notice of it. Anyway, so from there we see that Sparrow is about to be attacked by the orangutan, and she's saying, hey Robin, we need a plan. My wrench went straight through this thing. How the heck do we stop it? And that's where he finally, stops, and he's just kind of examining the disc thing. And again, look at his... You know what I think the problem is? It's that his legs look like they're probably about 3 times the length of his torso, at least. You know what I mean? You could fit 3 of his torsos into just his legs. That is... Wow. That is a bit much. That is too damn much. Anyway, so he's saying the disc must be some sort of transport device, moving the animal to various different locations wherever these discs are. That's what makes the animal constructs transparent. But when Superboy broke the disc, the glowing elephant became affected by the stories, able to be killed by its own ending. So he breaks the disc, and that's when Sparrow notices that he's gotten really upset now as he's picked up, Detective Williams and starts throwing him around just like a rag doll. She's telling him to watch out for no real reason because he's already in its hands, and he's asking for help. But Tim is remembering that the way that the story ended was that the orangutan was sold to a zoo. And that last time he had Impulse run at the elephant like a cannonball, like in the end of, Twain's story. But there aren't any zoos around here. So what stops this thing? And that's when he's looking around. Then Sparrow says, Robin, stop thinking and start helping. He says, I'm trying. I know the story it's from, but I don't know how to end it. She says, what? Well, this is your story, Robin. End it how you would want.
Is this bitch for real?
And the Detective Williams says, if you wanted to end it in the next couple of minutes, that would be swell. So he says, it is my story, not Bruce's, not Dick's, not Jason's, or Damien's, or Sparrow's, or Detective Williams, or that one guy I saw at the grocery store 2 weeks ago, or the 16-year-old girl who works at the McDonald's trying to save up money. She tells everybody it's for a car, but it's because she's actually trying to move out of her parents' home. This is my story, and I know exactly how I would end it. So she's asking, what are you doing? And then he's just giving it a straight razor, the one that the barbers use to shave your face like in the old movies and shit. Well, I think there are some that still do it, but it's not really something that most people do anymore. And with that, the orangutan disappears in a swooping sound effect. So he's talking about how Detective Williams pushed the chief to admit the case wasn't an accident, and how now there's an APB out on any glowing animals. So if any more pop up, they're going to know. And she's asking if they're going to be any more. He says, well, one is a strange occurrence, two is a coincidence. We'll know for sure if there's a third one. And then she says, you gonna get the next one a knife too? He says it wasn't a knife, it was a straight razor. In the story, the orangutan just wants to be human, doesn't mean to kill. By giving the orangutan the straight razor back, I help the orangutan feel like a man. But it's not. It's whatever. But we've got something worse to worry about. Something is going on. Whoever created these glowing animals has an agenda. I need to figure out who is behind this before anyone else gets hurt. And these close-ups on the characters' faces really accentuates all the reasons why I don't like this art style. Nothing. I mean, if you're one of the people who enjoys this art style, and no disrespect to the artist or anything, it's just not for me. And seeing one of my favorite characters drawn in this art style is just harshing my mellow so very badly. She says, does that mean you'll finally tell Bernard about your double life? But he says, not a chance. Why are you standing like this? What are you doing? She says, ugh. He says, Bernard is still getting over the pain cult he was in a couple months ago. He still has nightmares about it. I'm not going to make things worse. She asks if working together makes them a stronger couple. He says it could also end up with him dead. I'm not okay with that being an option. And then he's saying, hey, did you, because he sees there's a box there. So as he looks closer, we're able to see what it actually says on the tag. And it says, clever work today. Until next time, gumshoe. Which is something that detectives have been called in like old noir type of things and shit like that, like old movies and things like that. They called them gumshoe. And he's thinking, as Bernard would say, this isn't a coincidence. So there you go. There we have it. The first issue of Tim Drake's new Robin series, showing him in his new happy-ish relationship with Bernard. Wow. Yeah, y'all, that was a wild ride. I think that's the nicest thing I can say about it, and I don't even mean it in a good way. But I think that's the nicest way I can put it. That story was so annoying. Tim Drake has all of a sudden been turned into this just... I don't even know what you would call this. I mean, he's lost all confidence in it. Well, I mean, seemingly all confidence in himself, unless he's scolding a detective. Then he seems to have all the confidence in the world. But when he's thinking to himself about Bernard, and I guess it's supposed to be endearing or somehow relatable that that's the case, that he has this crush, or he's, in this new relationship, and he's acting this way, that's somehow meant to be a way for, I guess, the reader to empathize. Because, yeah, don't we go through that where we don't know where we're at in a relationship and we're wondering, does he really like me? Are we in a relationship? No, not all of us are like that. I understand there are some people who are, and not all people are. So, I don't really know much else to say about this book. I gave it a shot. I actually read it, even though I knew I wasn't going to like it based off of the art style, because I already knew I don't really particularly care for this artist's work. But I said, you know what? Let me at least see what the story is working with. And there really wasn't that much. It was, we have a detective theme, and we're going to beat that into the ground. Plus, like I said, I mean, the minute that you knew it was about the murders in the Rue Morgue, you basically knew where this was going. They're just trying to keep this little mystery thing about where are these discs coming from. But it's not really all that compelling. I mean, there are these projections that start causing hell, and that's about it. I mean, okay, I guess we'll see how they stick the landing. I really don't know, though, if I'm going to want to keep reading this series, just especially with the art style. And then if Tim's going to keep acting this way, definitely not. I mean, you took such a cool character and have turned him into just something completely unrecognizable. He's a joke. He's a shell of his former self. I don't even really recognize that character that I just read as Tim Drake, because it really did not seem like it. I'll tell you that much. But, well, there we have it. There's the end of the story. And so that's where we come to the end of this review video. So, if you happen to read this, feel free to let me know what you thought about it. I would love to know what people thought about this one, because I'm sure it's going to be one of those that's going to get all of the normal reactions, and I look forward to seeing those. So, feel free to let me know what you think down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, like the video. Go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notifications so you know when there's new content coming for you, or possibly when I'm streaming, if YouTube ever decides to actually send out notifications. Who knows if they actually do or not, but if you're done here, then go and read a book, just not that one. And if not, then I'll see you on my next video.